will be that of our what? Epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and our nervous tissue. And when we get into the connective tissue, we'll see it's a very heterogeneous population of 11 different types of tissues, which include that of bone, cartilage, blood, tissue. So we have the four primary tissue types: epithelial tissue, our connective tissue, our muscle tissue, and that of the nervous tissue. Epithelial, connective, we said bind and support the structure of the body. Muscle tissue, we know muscle tissue is associated with that of what? Producing movement. And we have the three different types of muscle tissue. We have that of our what? Cardiac, smooth, and muscle tissue. And then we identify the general function of nervous tissue is that of what? Communication. It will transmit an electrical signal that will trigger the release of a transmitter binding to receptors. We talked about receptors yesterday as being a type of transmembrane protein that's associated with cell communication. We said on the plasma membranes of cells, we said that we have an increased concentration of the saturated fatty acids. You remember that yesterday? And this will help to anchor those receptors in the plasma membrane so they can respond to a chemical signal, regulate the activity of that cell. Today, what we will begin is that of the epithelial. So today we'll begin with the first of the four tissue types, and that of the epithelial tissue. And when we think of our epithelial tissue, we can stratify epithelial tissue into two broad categories, two major types of epithelial tissue. So we have two major types of our epithelial tissue. We have that of the glandular epithelial, the glandular epithelial tissue, and then we have what we call the covering and lining epithelial tissue. So we have the two broad categories of epithelial tissue: glandular epithelial tissue, and then that would be covering and the lining epithelial tissue. We will focus for the most part on the covering and lining epithelial tissue, but we do just want to say a couple of things about the glandular epithelial tissue. When we think of our glandular epithelial tissue, as the name implies, this will be the epithelial tissue associated with forming the glands of the body. So it's associated with the glands of our body, associated with the glands. We can loosely define a gland as a specialized structure that will produce and release a secretory product. So a gland is a specialized structure that will produce for P, release, R for release, a secretory product that will serve some function for the human body. So our glands will produce and release a secretory product that will be used for some purposes of the body. Now, we think about the glands, which are formed by glandular epithelial tissue. The body is equipped with two types of our glands. We're pretty familiar, we might be familiar with the two basic types of glands. We have the what? Exocrine glands, and then we have the what? Endocrine glands. So we have two basic types. We have the exocrine glands and the endocrine glands. So there's two basic types of glands associated with the human body. We have that of the exocrine glands and the endocrine glands. As we look at the exocrine glands, duct-containing glands. And as you take a look at the development, embryonic development, these glands will start out as a sheet of epithelial tissue. This represents epithelial cells. This is just a sheet of our epithelial tissue. And during development, we will have either the evagination, but we'll use the example of the invagination of the tissue. So this is a sheet of epithelial tissue. The tissue will invaginate. And as it evaginates, it will form a duct. This will be the duct. So exocrine glands commonly referred to as our duct containing glands. And by definition, we describe a duct, D-U-C-T, as a tubular-like structure that provides an exit route for the what? Secretory product to be released onto the what? Surfaces of the body. So our exocrine glands are duct-containing glands. A duct is a tubular structure. And it will provide an exit route for the secretory product. Secretory product. So as we look at these cells, these will be the duct cells. These cells that make up the gland will be the secretory cells. They will release a secretory product, and by way of the duct, will be released to the surfaces of the body. So the exocrine glands are duct-containing glands. The duct is just a tubular-like structure that provides a means for that secretory product to reach the surfaces of the body. An example of an exocrine gland will be that of our sweat glands, salivary glands. The pancreas, which releases digestive enzymes, have both endocrine function and exocrine function. So the pancreas also, by way of releasing its digestive enzymes, involves the exocrine gland portion of the organ. So we have the exocrine glands being one of the two major types of produced or by the body. Then we have the endocrine gland. Our endocrine glands are ductless glands. They do not have a duct. They just have the secretory cells, and the secretory cells of the endocrine gland will not release their secretory product into a duct that reaches the surface of the body. When we think about an endocrine gland, it releases secretory product into the what? The endocrine secretory product is called what? Hormones, and hormones are released into the what?
Blood.
Into the circulation. So we have our endocrine glands, we have the secretory gland, so this will be an endocrine cell that will produce and release the secretory product, which we call a hormone. The hormone will then be released into the circulation, and then the hormone will bind to a target. And a target cell will be any cell that has a what? A receptor for that specific what? Hormone. So we have endocrine glands, they're ductless. We have these secretory cells or the endocrine cells. They will produce and release a hormone. The hormone will then be released into the circulation. It will travel into the circulation, and it will bind to any cell, which is called a target cell, that has a receptor specific for that hormone. Hormone receptor complex causes a particular event to occur on the target cell. Are you okay with that? Then we have, so what we're going to focus, we just wanted to highlight the, you will be focusing primarily on the binding, but make sure you take a look at the section in the glandular overall section of your textbook of chapter 4. So make sure you take a look at that section. But as we take a look at the covering and lining epithelial tissue or epithelium, it consists of sheets of tissue that what? As the name implies, covers and lines the what? Surfaces of our body. So histologically, structurally consists of sheets of cells. These cells will be linked to each other by way of cellular junctions. This attaches adjacent cells together to form tissues, and they will cover the surfaces of our body. So structure consists of sheets of cells that cover and line the surfaces of the body. So very straightforward. You can think about our covering and lining epithelial tissue. What? Epidermis, or the skin, is a type of covering and lining epithelium. So we have the epidermis, outermost layer of our skin is made of a type of epithelial tissue we'll soon see called the keratinized, stratified, squamous epithelial tissue. To the epidermis, we have the what? Dermis. Deep to the epidermis, we have the dermis. The dermis, which is the deeper layer of the skin, is not epithelial tissue. It's actually what? Connective tissue. And we should be able to reason that because we said earlier, wherever you find what? Epithelial tissue, you're going to find what? Connective tissue. So we have the epidermis, another type of epithelial tissue or covering and lining epithelial tissue that we tested on last week will be that of the what? Serous membranes. We said our serous membranes associated with the ventral what? Body cavities consist of epithelial tissue and what? Connective tissue. That epithelial tissue is a type of covering and lining. So we have the serous serosa membranes associated with the ventral body cavity, lining the ventral body cavities, also lining the outer surface of those organs housed in those body cavities. Are we okay with that? So we have another example of the covering and lining epithelial tissue. We will find the covering and lining epithelial tissue not only line the outside of the organs, but also line the lumen of our organs. So it also will line the lumen, hollow organs, such as lining of the digestive tract, the stomach, the intestines. We have epithelial tissue line the lumen of these organs, the urinary bladder. Also line the lumen of our blood vessels. We have what's called the endothelium. Endothelium is a type of simple epithelial tissue that lines the lumen of the blood vessels, comes in direct contact with the circulating blood that circulates through the vessels. So as we take a look at the covering and lining epithelial tissue, it helps to establish boundaries between different compartments within the body. So it helps compartmentalize environments within our body. As we begin to take a look at this type of epithelium, we can highlight some general functions of this tissue and our covering and lining epithelial tissue. We think about this provides protection. So one function of this tissue will be to provide protection to the body. As we go into the different types of tissue, we'll see other tissues will be specialized for that of filtration, absorption. So we have them involved in filtration. Filtration we'll see is a type of passive transport where we're moving solids and water from a region of higher pressure to a region of lower pressure. So involved in filtration, absorption, Also involved in that of secretion and excretion. Secretion, the release of a secretory product that will be used by the body. Excretion, the release of a product that will be what? Eliminated from the body. We also will have them being involved in that of our sensory perception. When you think about that of the skin, it's equipped with tactile receptors that allow us to respond to what? Changes in the environment or mechanical stress applied to the surface of the skin. So this is a look at just some general functions associated with the covering and lining of epithelial tissue. Structurally, we have dense population of cells. Adjacent cells will be linked together by cell junctions to form sheets of tissue that cover the surfaces of the body. Now, as we take a look at the classification, I should say, for our surface lining epithelial tissue, classification purposes of this tissue, we employ the use of a two-name naming system. So as we take a look at the classification of the covering and lining epithelial tissue, we employ the use of a two-name naming system. So we classify them by giving them two names. So we have the two-name naming system. The first name that's assigned to the epithelial tissue will represent the number of cell layers, so the covering and lined epithelial tissue. Our first name denotes the number of cell layers, and the covering and lined epithelial tissue will be classified as either being that of what? Simple epithelial tissue. And when we say simple epithelial tissue, we have a single layer of cells. So in simple epithelial tissue, we have a single layer of cells, which is a single layer. The structure highlighted by the darkened region here, this structure here is a support matrix called the basement membrane. The basement membrane is a composite of both epithelial tissue and what? Connective tissue that supports the epithelial tissue. So in simple epithelial tissue, all the cells are in direct contact with what's called the basement membrane. We'll highlight the basement membrane as we progress in the chapter, but for our sake today, in simple epithelial, we're referring to simple epithelium as consisting of a single layer of cells, and all those cells are in direct contact with the support matrix that we call the basement membrane. The other type of epithelium, if it has two or more layers of cells, we call that stratified. So if it has two or more, they are stratified epithelial tissue. So it has two or more layers of cells. So we have two or more layers of cells. So only the basal layer, the lower layer of cells, will be attached to the basement membrane. And then we have multiple layers of cells supported by the basal cells, which are in direct contact with the basement membrane. So this is the first layer, second layer, multiple layers, apical or superior to that of the lower level, the basal layer of cells. So the first name represents the number of cell layers, covering the line epithelial epithelial tissue will be classified as either simple, meaning it's just a single layer. Are you okay with that? And you think about it as a single layer of cells, you look at the list of functions, a single layer cell cannot provide much what? Protection. It'll be well suited for what? Filtration, absorption, short distance to get material from one compartment to another compartment. Then we have the stratified, multiple layers of cells. Multiple layer cells can afford the physical protection to the body, and these type of tissues will require the stratified epithelial tissue, in addition to providing other functions, can provide protection to the body that they're covering and lining. The second name of the epithelial tissue refers to the morphology or shape of the cell. And as we take a look at the basic associated with our epithelial tissue is characterized by three basic shapes. These three basic shapes of these cells, we have what are called squamous cells, cuboidal shaped cells, and the third type is called columnar shaped cells. So as we take a look at the classification of the covering and lining epithelial tissue, in which we said the first name refers to the number of cell layers. We have simple, single layer, contact with the basement membrane, stratified, multiple cell layers, only the basal surface is in direct contact with the basement membrane. The second name refers to cell shape. We have the squamous. Morphology, this is a flattened, irregular shaped cell, so they're flattened. Cells, they have a disc-shaped nucleus, so they have a flattened disc-shaped nucleus. So we have the squamous epithelial tissue, flattened thin cell. So this type of cell will be well equipped for filtration, transporting material from one region to the next. Then we have the cuboidal. We have the cuboidal, which we've highlighted here. The cuboidal-shaped cell is a box-shaped cell, or shaped, thus the name cuboidal. So we have our cuboidal, a box-shaped cell, in which we have a circular, centrally located nucleus, and we can use the morphology of the nucleus to help us differentiate between squamous and that of cuboidal. So we have the simple, we have the squamous shaped cells, the cuboidal shaped cells, and then the third most commonly shaped cell associated with our epithelial tissue is the columnar shaped cells, which we tried to highlight here. The columnar shaped cells are long rectangular shaped cells, so they're long rectangular shaped cells. They have a elongated nucleus, which is located towards the bottom half or the basal surface of the cell. So we have the columnar and the elongated or oval shaped nucleus associated with the columnar shaped cells. So the three subtypes associated with covering and lining epithelial tissue are what? Squamous, columnar, and what? Cuboidal. And then the epithelial tissue can be a single layer, classified as simple, or it can be multiple cell layers, classified as what? Stratified. So you can have simple squamous, simple cuboidal, simple columnar, or you can have stratified squamous, stratified columnar, stratified cuboidal. Are you okay with that? So we're just using the interplay between the two naming systems to identify epithelial tissue.